A wicked tongue. We should always use words to help people, not to hurt them. Here now is Gene Getz.
I'm sure that many of you remember a little proverb that reads like this: "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." I remember children singing that on the playground back in school. It's a lie. It's not true. Sticks and stones will break your bones, but words can kill you. They can destroy you. They can hurt you. And this is what this principle is all about, and this is what this psalm is all about. Now, the subject actually in this psalm has to do with a man by the name of Doeg. And he's called Doeg, the Edomite. But here's the background. Again, this psalm comes out of an incredibly dark period in David's life, because King Saul was he was out to get David. He was so angry at David that he was going to do everything possible to take his life. David was on the run. He was scared to death. And he fled to a city that was called Nob. And he went into to worship there, and he went to the priest, Ahimelech. And in his fear, he actually lied. He said he was on a mission from the king. I think Ahimelech probably saw through his lie, but ironically, he actually helped him out. But David, and he knew this, and he admitted it later, there was another guy there. And the guy's name was Doeg. And he was an Edomite, and he was one of Saul's servants. Well, what happened was that when he went back, he reported to Saul that he had seen David in Nob. And we find this in this report in 1 Samuel chapter 22, verse 7. Saul said to his servants, and this is, of course, Saul expressing his anger. He says, "Listen, men of Benjamin, is Jesse's son going to give all of you fields and vineyards? In essence, like I'm doing?" You see, David has been, by God's will, stated, it was stated by God himself that David's going to replace Saul. Saul knew that. So he's rebelling. And he's out to kill David. In essence, he's taking on God, but he's so caught up in his anger that he's trying to kill David to keep him from replacing him. He says, "Do you think he'll make all of you commanders of thousands?" David he's referring to. And commanders of hundreds like I've done? Then Doeg, the Edomite, who was in charge of Saul's servants, answered, "I saw Jesse's son," that's David, "I saw Jesse's son come to Ahimelech, son of Ahitub, at Nob. Ahimelech inquired of the Lord for him and gave him provisions. He also gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine." Well, basically, that made Saul so angry that he ordered that Ahimelech be killed. In fact, he went a step further and he ordered that all 85 priests that were there with their families be killed. Now, the other servants of Saul wouldn't do it. But Doeg was so bent on pleasing Saul and gaining prestige that he did it. And it was an incredible tragedy. Horrible tragedy. And here's the irony. That happened because of David's foolishness and David's failure. And David acknowledged that. In 1 Samuel 22:22, we have his confession. Then David said to Abiathar, who, by the way, escaped and reported to David. That's how David got the story. Then David said to Abiathar, "I knew that Doeg the Edomite was there that day and that he was sure to report to Saul. The moment I saw that guy, I knew I was in trouble." But he didn't know what was going to happen. And David took responsibility. He said, "I myself am responsible for the lives of everyone in your father's family." And I think that was truly a another sign of sorrow, of deep sorrow, which eventually led him, I think, to another stage of repentance in his life. But here is the point that David is making. In spite of the fact that he had lied and sinned, he goes on to explain the evil of a wicked tongue in terms of what Doeg had done. And that's the context of this psalm. Verses 1 and 2. Why brag about evil, you hero? In other words, that's a bit subtle. Why brag about evil, you hero? God's faithful love is constant. Like a sharpened razor, your tongue devises destruction, working treachery. In verses 3 and 4, he says, you love evil instead of good, lying instead of speaking truthfully. You love any words that destroy. You treacherous tongue. And by the way, isn't it interesting that he's addressing the tongue? In that sense, I think there's double meaning. He's addressing his own tongue, because he knows that his own lie and his own deception and what he had done had caused this. But he's also using that as an opportunity to say to this evil man who took the lives of all these people, that your treacherous tongue did this as well. And so there's a tremendous message here. Now, when you look at a New Testament perspective, you see some interesting correlations, because James, in his letter, picked up on this theme when he says this: so too, though the tongue is a small part of the body, it boasts great things. Consider how large a forest a small fire ignites, and the tongue is a fire. The tongue, a world of unrighteousness, is placed among the parts of our bodies. It pollutes the whole body. It sets the course of life on fire and is set on fire by hell. Any one of you who have seen the results of a forest fire know the imagery there. I remember when my family and I went through Yellowstone after the fire hit Yellowstone National Park. And even to this day, and it'll be a long time into the future where you will see the remains of that fire, though it is being replaced, of course, in God's scheme of things. But it was horrible in terms of the destruction. And some of those fires start just with a little spark and becomes destructive. And that's the imagery that is used here. And the fact of the matter is that the tongue, just a word misspoken that is wrong, deceitful, a lie, can set on a tremendous forest fire. And that's what this psalm is all about. That was David's concern about himself, as well as the evil that grew out of that through this evil man who reported this all back to Saul. So here's the question. What are some practical steps we can take as Christians to make sure we use words to help people rather than to hurt them? And I believe that one of the things we can do here, and we have to really focus on this because it doesn't come natural, and that is to focus on using words to help people rather than to hurt them. Now, we may not purposely set out to hurt them by things we say, but we can hurt them by things we don't say when we have an opportunity to say some good things. Think about that. Focusing on the good things we can say to encourage people, and a lot of times with those words we can help them to be encouraged in relationship to what they're feeling. I love Proverbs 12:25, the power of words. Anxiety in a man's heart weighs it down, but a good word cheers it up. And there he's not talking just about the heart that pounds in our chest. This is who we are internally. We've all felt that. It feels like weight. It's not that your heart has gotten bigger. It's just the anxiety that weighs a man down. But what happens when we share good words? It can change people's lives. It can bring happiness into their lives. I know that from experience in terms of how good, encouraging words have helped me in a time of distress and of difficulty in my own life. And we have the power of words to say good things to encourage people. Don't ever fall victim to the fact that in your mind you say, well, other people tell them good things. They don't need to hear from me. Well, that's basically the way everybody thinks. So 2 plus 2 equals what? 0 in that sense. In other words, be proactive is one of the important steps that we can take here. I love this proverb. A gentle answer turns away anger, but a harsh word stirs up wrath. The tongue of the wise makes knowledge attractive, but the mouth of fools blurts out foolishness. It's amazing what a gentle answer, a humble answer, will do in turning away wrath. I remember an experience in my own life one time when I was lecturing in a seminary in another city up in Indiana, and they gave me a car, and on the outside of the car, it had the name of the seminary, had a logo. I stayed in a hotel or motel across from the seminary, got in my car the next morning to drive over to the seminary, and it was totally, it was territory that was just unfamiliar to me, and the fact of the matter is that the parking lot blended with the road. And I didn't realize that I was out in the middle of the road, and I didn't realize it. And I saw a car bearing down on me. But the fact of the matter is, I saw his face through the mirror, or through the window, and he was angry. In fact, he came right straight at me, hit the brakes just before he would plow into me, did a complete 180 and was on the other side of the car, got out of the car, rolling up his sleeves, coming around to my side of the car. And the Lord helped me at that moment, and I rolled down the window, which in that case was the proper thing to do. Some case it can be the wrong thing to do. And I said, and I guess I expressed it, I am sorry. I am absolutely sorry. I said, I'm new, I'm out of town. I didn't see where the road began. And I'll never forget it. In that case, he just dropped his head and he said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, too, for my behavior. And he went around, got in his car, and drove off. Now, what he had seen, by the way, was the logo on that side of the car, which indicated, as I thought about it later, he did not like seminary students for one reason or another. Or he didn't like the seminary in that particular environment. And he was an angry man. And I just happened to step in and ignite some of the anger that he probably already had towards others who drove that particular car or represent that particular seminary. I guess the point I want to make here is when you cut somebody off, say, I am sorry. Mouth it big. I'm sorry. I've seen that happen. I've seen what happens to people when they're laying on the horn and you say, I'm sorry. And all of a sudden, they'll give you a thumbs up and drive on. Isn't it amazing? A soft answer turns away wrath. Doesn't always work that way, but the principle here, I think, is a powerful principle that relates to how we can use words, powerful, make words powerful. Here's one. With this, I'll close. Proverbs 16:24. Pleasant words are a honeycomb, sweet to the taste, health to the body. Another translation says, sweet to the soul, health to the body. The Greek word for soul is suke. The Greek word for body is soma. So if you put suke and soma together, what do you have? Psychosomatic. Psychosomatic. And what this simply says is that pleasant words can make you feel good all over. Brings healing to the body and health to the soul. That, you see, is the power of words. So here's the principle. We should always use words to help people, not to hurt them.